Kashi, Varanasi, Banaras. These are all the same names to describe the oldest living city in the world. A labyrinth of narrow, winding alleyways clustered around the banks of the river Ganges, lined with Hindu temples, where pilgrims offer puja or prayers, and cows hang about, oblivious to the chaos that surrounds them. Since the beginning of time, Varanasi has been a great center of learning. This holy city has been a symbol of spiritualism, philosophy, and mysticism for thousands and thousands of years. This is the land where the stories of all the human pasts are still alive, and people from all across the world come seeking answers and questions. And I, like most of them, am a seeker. May heaven keep eternal the grandeur of Banaras, arbor of this meadow of joy. For oft-returning souls, their journeys end. In this weary temple land of the world, safe from the whirlwind of time, Banaras is forever spring. Translations very seldom do full justice to the original beauty and grandeur of a poem, but this English translation of a Farsi Masnavi or Ode to Banaras, written by the famous 19th century Indian poet Mirza Ghalib, does capture the true eternal essence of Banaras. As Banaras for the Hindus is like Jerusalem for the Christians or Makkah, Medina for the Muslims, but it is also much more than that. For Hindus come to Banaras for many reasons, not only to die. They come here to wash away their sins. They come here to find a moment of peace away from the rigors of their daily lives. They come here to remember their gods. And of course, at the end of a full and often weary life, they come to Banaras to die. Mirza Ghalib said, "तना सुख पर अक़ीदा रखने वाले सब ये कहते हैं, बनारस में जो मर जाते हैं, वो भी जिंदा रहते हैं." Those who believe in reincarnation have full faith that one who dies in Banaras also lives forever. Death and suffering are catalysts of a different kind, and often lead us to stumble upon the truth of life. It doesn't matter how great your religion is or how ancient your scriptures are, if you will not attempt to independently rediscover the truth. And like the fable goes, Nachiketa had inquired the truth of life from the god of death, Yama, and learnt that the purpose of life is the discovery of self. And yet, death has the capacity to give you a perspective on life. This is the story of one such man, who at the age of 29 ventured outside his palace and discovered the sufferings of his people. Through encounters with an old man, a diseased man, a decaying corpse, and an ascetic. And these four sights changed his life forever. Born a man, living as a mere mortal. It was through his own efforts, his own never-ending quest, that he attained the ultimate level of human perfection. Buddhahood. Yes, we are speaking of Buddha, the enlightened one. And on his journey to enlightenment, he had no guru, he had no teacher. His knowledge of the innermost truths of human existence was realized through his intuitive wisdom at Bodh Gaya. And it was here at Sarnath, a few miles from Banaras, that he gave his very first sermon. At Bodh Gaya, Buddha discovered the middle way, a path of moderation, which according to him is the path of wisdom. Buddha decided to test the liberating truths that he had discovered. But since his two former teachers, Alar Kalam and Uddaka Rahmaputta, had both died, he decided to search out his 5 former companions and to share his Dhamma with them. It is believed that Buddha passed through Kashi in search of his companions. And then he finally found them, a few miles beyond Kashi, at a serene location close to nature, full of greenery and water bodies. The place had a lot of deer, and in the area was known as Mrigdau, the deer park, situated at Rishi Pattana, now known as Sarnath. It is here that Buddha gave his first sermon to the 5 ascetics, Vappa, Mahanama, Assaji, Kondana and Bhadya, and set in motion the wheel of law, Dhamma Chakra Pravartan. So technically speaking, this is the place where Buddhism took its first leap of faith. Who knows what really happened here that blessed day? It was more than 2,500 years ago that Buddha gave his very first sermon, right here. And the Dhamma Chakra Pravartan was set in motion. But one thing is for certain. I can feel those vibrations, even today. After attaining enlightenment at Bodh Gaya, Gautam Buddha spent the next 45 years of his life spreading his teachings. He traveled widely throughout northern and eastern India, consolidating his core teachings and establishing a monastic community which exists today throughout the world. This is one of the most sacred places for Buddhist pilgrims from around the world. Sarnath continued to blossom and bloom through the reign of the Pala kings right up until the 3rd century AD. It was only with the invasion of Muhammad Ghaznavi many centuries later that the artistic and architectural work here came to a standstill. And then, after many more centuries, through amazing archaeological excavations in the 19th and 20th centuries, that once again, the beauty and the splendor, the amazing tranquility and peace of Sarnath was brought before the eyes of the world. What we see here today in this wide expanse is history accumulated over 2,500 years and then buried beneath the debris. It contains the remains of the Dhamik Stupa, the Ashoka Pillar, the Dharmarajika Stupa, and also has spaces which were specifically built for the monks to conduct their meditation. The Dhamik Stupa, as it is known today by its modern name, was originally called the Dhamma Chakra Stupa because this is the very place from which Gautam Buddha had given his first sermon. The Dhamik Stupa bears special significance at Sarnath as it signifies the seat of the holy Buddha as he proclaimed his faith. The first discourse of the Buddha was on the wheel of law. The wheel symbolizes samsara, or the world, the eternal round of existence which goes on and on, life after life, because of ceaseless cravings and desires. The path to liberation is explained by Buddha, has 8 points, and is known as the Eightfold Path. But those 8 aspects must never be viewed as a series of individual steps, but must be understood as highly interdependent principles that are always viewed through their relationships with one another. Over the centuries, the middle path of Buddha, or the Buddhist way of life, has inspired millions and millions to have a deep change of heart. But the story of Buddhism, or the story of Sarnath, would be incomplete without mentioning one of Buddha's greatest disciples, the Emperor Ashoka, a brutal ruler who, inspired by the teachings of Buddha, transformed himself into a beloved king and spread Buddhism across the world. It is said that the Emperor Ashoka built this Sarnath pillar while he was on his Dhamma pilgrimage, as a tribute to the place where Buddha gave his very first sermon. Imagine that this was once a splendid 50-foot-high monolithic stone pillar, crowned at the top with 4 magnificent back-to-back lions, which today form the Indian national emblem. Ashoka built shrines and monasteries and inscribed Buddha's teachings on rocks and pillars in so many places across the world. Buddhism is eternally relevant because it relies not on the person of Buddha, but on his teachings. It relies on not memorizing his words by rote, but understanding their inner meaning. My teaching is not a philosophy, but the result of direct experience, says Buddha. My teaching is a means of practice, not something to hold on to or worship. From his very first sermon here in Sarnath to his final words, Appa Deepo Bhava. You yourself are your own light. It is the life of Buddha that is the true message. In many ways an ordinary life, but also beautiful and richly haunting. And above all, it teaches us that what Buddha attained can be attained by each one of us. On another given evening, I would listen to the call of the explorer within me and dash off into the sunset, seeking out a new adventure, a new experience. But not today. Today I shall try something different. Today, I shall try the Buddha way. I shall live in this very moment and not worry about what happened to me yesterday and what might happen to me tomorrow. I shall try the middle path. I shall try to find the Buddha within myself. I shall be my own light. Appa Deepo